To get the latest on the war in Ukraine, joining us is military analyst Philip Ingram. Good to see you. Now, we were talking an hour ago, and immediately after you went, we got this news in from the Russian Defence Ministry talking about some kind of airstrike which has killed hundreds of Ukrainian troops. What more do we know?
Well, this is what the Russian Ministry of Defence, or as I refer to it as the Ministry of Disinformation, has said on day 319 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day military operation. They're claiming an attack that they've identified over the last 24 hours, Ukrainian troop concentrations in a building in the town of Kramatorsk that we can see in the centre there, and that they attacked it with rockets and have killed over 600. Now, that's interesting. They've said it's in retaliation to the Ukrainian New Year's Eve strike in the city of Mykolaiv that the Ukrainians claimed that they killed 400 Russians in, and the Russians said that they had lost 89 in that. It's interesting, the Ukrainian commentary channels are ridiculing this report out of the Russian Ministry of Defence. There are pictures that the Ministry of Defence or their propaganda channels are putting up, but those are unverified at the moment. I'd take it with a pinch of salt.
What else is happening then? Bakhmut and Zaporizhia, key focus at the moment.
Yeah, Bakhmut, we've been talking about this for months. We've got the Ukrainians actually fixing the Russians in the Bakhmut area. The Russians are trying to encircle the city to then capture it. There was some talk of them capturing the salt mines just to the north of it, but the Ukrainians are continuing to hold the Russians there, whilst the Ukrainians are probing into Crimea, trying to look at counterattacking into that ground line of communication we can see going through Crimea down to the east of Bakhmut and further down to Donetsk. The last few weeks ago, the Russians put additional defences approximately on the line that we can see there, the yellow line, but the Ukrainians could use that as an axis to counterattack in. And then last night we had UK Ministry of Defence talking of a defensive line between the Vasilivka and Orkiv area, increasing the defences along there because they're potentially expecting a Ukrainian counterattack down in through that Zaporizhia bit. That would be significant because that would split that land bridge from Crimea up to Russia that everyone's been focusing on here. So either of those are bad options for Russia should the Ukrainians counterattack.
And suggestions of further Russian troops going into Belarus?
There's also been some talk of shelling overnight into, and again, this is Russian information saying that they've attacked the two power plants that we can see here, but this has been unconfirmed. It's interesting, the Russians have been attacking Ukrainian power plants, trying to break the will of the Ukrainian people over recent months, but they're now saying Ukrainians are shelling into Russian-controlled power plants. But Belarus, as you say, the Russians are putting an awful lot more troops and equipment into Belarus. And they're putting some good equipment in there as well. They've been using it as a training ground for the reservists that they called up. It's not clear whether what they're doing is preparing an attack force to try and attack down into Kiev again at some stage and split the Ukrainian defences. The Ukrainian defences will have to be split anyway to prepare for that just in case, or whether this is just some big bluff that will come out over the coming weeks.